program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
The golden skies of the African bushveld are giving us beautiful silhouettes this morning. This is Safari Live. Ready.
Standing by.
Five, four, three, two, one. You are live, you are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Safari Live. It's a lovely, lovely morning, quite a warm morning, and I hope you have all had a great day wherever you are in the world. My name is Byron, and on camera with me this morning is Dave. And don't forget, you've probably seen James already. James and Batman or Craig, they're on the other vehicle. Stef will be out a little bit later on Bushwalk, and then we've got Kirsten and Jerry out in final control this morning. It is my last safari with Safari Live for this stint. Don't worry, only this stint. I will be back again at some point, probably in March, I think, when they need some help again. So I will be back. Don't forget, everyone, we are completely live. Send us your questions via Twitter, hashtag Safari Live. Otherwise, email us with questions at WildEarthTV. Questions, comments, anything you'd like to know, send it to us, and we'll hopefully be able to answer them for you. Now, I'm basically in an area known as Sandy Patch. Dave said he could hear some lions this morning, so we're just having a look around here. I haven't heard anything again. I'm hoping that perhaps the Nkuhuma Pride have headed back into this area. So that's what I'm looking for this morning. I'm going to see if we get any lion activity. I'm listening at the moment, but for the moment I can just hear white-browed scrub robin calling very close to us. You might be able to hear it. There's some frogs in the distance too, some toads calling. Yeah, those are toads. No, this is James's favourite bird, the white-browed scrub robin. He does enjoy it. He enjoys listening to it, and it has got a beautiful melodious call. Lovely skies this morning, really great colour. Wonderful, wonderful colour. I haven't heard any lions again. I haven't seen any sign of them. But it's still early, still very early, so maybe we get a sign of them. It's actually still dark enough that I can use the spotlight just to pick up on some eyes, and picked up on something. What was that? It may have been... of course it would. Let me just try to get my binoculars out. I'm going to see if I can find out what eyes those were that I just saw through there. Possibly Impala, but while I do that, let's head to the biggest fan of the white-browed scrub robin, James.
The biggest fan of the white scrub, right? Let me start that again. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the most glorious sunrise here in the African wilderness. My name is James Hendry. There are some waterbuck looking at me a bit strangely. And yes, indeed, I am the biggest fan of the white-browed scrub robin, even though I struggle with its name at this time of the morning. Now, please talk to us, hashtag Safari Live, questions at WildEarthTV, as we look at the glory of this eastern sky. Craig Batman, the Maltese root canal, is on camera this morning, and hopefully the show will star our main characters, the great Queen Kurula and her two offspring, Prince Hosana and Princess Shongile. And then, while we look at the sun coming up today, of course her main consort is Tingana, the male leopard, 9 years old, odd, almost 10. And while Karula is the queen, I would like to know from you during the course of the next little while what title we can give to Tingana, because we surely cannot call him the king, because that's a bit sort of elephantish, really. So is he the prince consort, perhaps? I don't know what we're going to call him. You can ponder that if you like. You can completely ignore it if you like as well. We're going to sit here for a little bit longer, because I have to say this is one of the most wonderful skies I've seen for some time, and of course I've seen many of them, given how many we get here on a daily basis. It is too beautiful. And like I say, there are some waterbuck behind us. We're not going to have a look at them just yet. We won't be able to see them because it's pretty dark still. Then the morning chorus, I think, is pretty quiet where we are, but it's not quiet down in the valleys. Valleys, I say that like they're a great sort of canyons here. But down on the drainage lines, possibly because the sound echoes a bit more, I can hear some doves calling. I've just heard the champagne bird, the black-bellied bustard, just behind us. And still the crickets, mole crickets, all around. But otherwise it is quite quiet. There are one or two white-browed scrub robins. And of course the ubiquitous grey-headed sparrow at this time of the morning. Chirp, 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 chirp. A couple of oxpeckers thinking about which animals they're going to go and devour the ticks off of today. And that's about it. Right, shall we do a little trundle down the road? That really is too gorgeous. In fact, let's sit here for just a little bit longer, and while we do that, we'll hand you over to Byron, who's got a couple of animals who have yet to take off their pajamas.
James, I had them, but they have gone. We had some zebra. They were just out in the clearing, and a little dazzle of zebra, a group of zebra, but they've moved off in through the thicket. Maybe they didn't like James's pajama joke. That's okay. Let's see what else we can find. Wow, just have a look again at this color in the sky. Let's look there. Look at that. Wow, look at that silhouette. It's like the burning embers of a fire that are in the sky. I must be honest, these sunrises and the sunsets the last week or two have been just absolutely beautiful. Here's some Egyptian geese. You can still hear the white-browed scrub robins calling. Aaron, thank you very much. You say you're putting thoughts out into the universe of honey badgers. I think you're right. So hopefully we get to see a honey badger. That would be great. So honey badgers, I would love to see one of you today. Please. Just trying to listen again to see if I get any sound of lions, but I haven't heard anything. Was it not your stomach, perhaps, Dave? That was. go and have a look down here. There's some nice clearings around. Maybe we're lucky and we spot something out there. Yesterday was a fairly quiet drive for me, I must be honest. We didn't see too much, but it happens like that. At times you drive around and you see very little wildlife, but luckily there's still birds and there's still Egyptian goose. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy the odd Egyptian goose, but there's so many of them at the moment, and they're everywhere, so I don't know if I get that excited about them anymore. Is that wrong to say? I'm so sorry, I don't know, but there are plenty of Egyptian geese, and we get them throughout the country, especially on golf courses, parks in the cities. They're all over, they really are all over. Now getting to that stage of the morning where it's a bit tricky to use the spotlight. Don't quite know if it's light enough for not using the spotlight or dark enough for using the spotlight. We can still kind of see a little bit. Would be great to perhaps spot a little chameleon. My last morning safari for January. This is my last safari for January 2017. Can you believe it? Wow. But then February I've got some safaris lined up, taking guests to Londolozi. And some of you are asking if I could please give some updates on leopard and lion activity while I'm there, and I'll definitely do that. I'll post some stuff on Twitter once I'm there. It'll be about the middle of Feb. And I know I was just going through some of the tweets yesterday. I must be honest, I do enjoy trying to get as many get through as many of the tweets as possible. There's a babbler. I just caught a glimpse of a babbler. I don't want to shine the spotlight on it. Because, we get so many questions and comments, and it's occasionally a bit difficult for us to get through all of them during the show. So I try and get through or read as many of them as possible, and see if there are any questions that we might have missed out on, or anything I can perhaps answer in the next show. But I know a lot of you are asking, why am I leaving, or where am I going, or whatever. So I basically help out on Safari Live. I'm not a permanent presenter. Most of you do know I do run my own business, a travel company, a tour operator, and I book safaris for mainly foreigners, and then I also do private guiding. But and then I've been helping on Safari Live since last year, and I've been here a lot recently, which has been great, and I will still be here in the future. But the permanent guides like Brent and Jamie and James and Taylor and Stefan, they've all been taking a bit of a break over the last 3 weeks or so because of the television shows. So they've been trying to rest some of those presenters as much as possible, and that's why, like Brent and Jamie, have kind of only been here on the weekends, so they do the few drives and do the television shows. But from next week they'll be back again. Tristan has started, so so it's basically when the other guys need a bit of a rest, and I'll come in and just help out. But then I've got to go on safari with guests, so I've got to leave again. So that's basically what happens. I hope that answers all of your questions. So I'm not leaving. I haven't been fired, although James tried to fire me many times. But fortunately I've got a great union. Anyway, let's head back to old James and see what he's managed to find for us.
I'm afraid I haven't managed to find anything, but there's just too much of beauty going on in the sky. So we've just sat here, Craig and I. I've taken 1 or 2 photos, and I just think that is too wonderful, don't you? The clouds are moving in from the north, strangely. I think they'll burn away fairly soon. And in fact, if we pan around to the left and to the right, there's just pinkness and peach and apricot and honey and a little bit of grapefruit hanging in the sky everywhere we look. And of course, the great advantage of sitting in a place like this is that, well, if something calls its last for the night, then hopefully you'll hear it. But nothing has called at all since we've been sitting here. So I think we'll probably press on now. Right. Oh, that's quite nice. I like that. A few of you have said that Tingana is the Duke of Djuma. I quite like that. The Duke of Djuma. I think we can definitely go with that. Now, we're not going to get into a long and involved debate about what we can and can't call him, but the Duke of Djuma is a very good suggestion. I like that a lot. I might use it. I might use it, everyone. The Duke of Djuma. Hello. Good morning. Yes. You started drinking very early today, didn't you? Yes, you champagne bird, you. See, now he's not quite sure if he's been spotted, so he's thinking about hiding behind that bush. But now thinking maybe he'll just walk around and do his call. Here we go. Just doesn't get boring, does it? Very well camouflaged. And you know what I think? Every time he turns his head like that, looking surprised, well, they have a permanent sort of look of surprise on their faces. But I think what he's looking for is perhaps the sound of another one doing the same thing. Craig, are you able to zoom in on that orange thing behind his left shoulder? What is that? Is it a bird or it's a butterfly? I think it's a butterfly on the flower there. They always look so surprised. You can see there's a little bit of a breeze blowing this morning. And although this bird looks unwieldy as it moves along, they're actually very good flyers. And I've seen them escape African hawk eagles once or twice. I mean, an African hawk eagle is a stooping predatory bird. And how this ungainly looking creature managed to get up off the ground and fly away from one, I just don't know. But they're actually pretty good at it. Here he goes again. That is not the most vociferous call, and it takes quite a long time for him to prepare to do it, doesn't it? The sun still hasn't quite peeped up over the horizon. Let's carry on going. We're going to go and check the southern boundary for the Queen. The last time we saw the Duke, of course, he was on Arathusa. Now, when we last saw Karula, she was hissing and snarling at her 2 children. And the inevitable question comes as to why she was hissing and snarling at her 2 children. Was she just sick and tired of their appalling table manners? Was she perhaps irritated that they were playing with a ball in the house? Were they refusing to have their bath? Or was it perhaps something slightly more interesting? Could it be that she's having another one of those estrus cycles. Remember, she was mating with Tingana now, probably, what was it, about a month ago? Couldn't have been exactly a month ago, well, round about a month ago. She mated with Tingana. Didn't seem to be a full mating session of 6 days or so. So maybe that has happened again. Maybe she's coming into that proto-estrus and just giving them a little bit of what for. And the reason I say that is that the last time we watched Shadow come into estrus when she was with Sindile, and that was, that was well over a year ago. Sindile, for those of you who don't know, was one of our favourite characters. He's since moved on from here. He'd now be, what is he now? He must be just about 3 years old. He was a male leopard that lived here, grandson of the queen, Karula, and his mother came into estrus before he was ready to go independent, and she started chasing him away with much the same sort of snarling that Karula has been giving to her kids of late. Now, we don't know where she is at the moment. We haven't got any idea, because the big storm that came after our last sighting wiped away any of the tracks that she would have left. So we'll just go and do a southern boundary patrol and see what pops up there. We might catch up with a few of the guides from further south as well. They might have some word. But otherwise, the morning did not bring with it any kind of predator calling. There was no leopard sawing. I didn't hear any lions calling. David did, but that was certainly before dawn broke. I haven't even heard any obvious sounds of the bird that I've forgotten what I'm talking about, the hornbill, the ground hornbill. Normally call before dawn as well. Everything just pretty, not bland, but normal, unpredatory. Craig, we have our first animal of the day. Impala. Yes, Liz, it would be a very nice surprise. You say you'd like to find Shadow today. Out and about, I think, is the term you used. I think I'd like to see her out and about as well. I'd also quite like to see if she's had another cub, because she's apparently very pregnant. She was last time. There is evidence that she perhaps has a den site around Red Dam. I've checked around there a number of times. We've heard nothing from Arathusa. And so it's quite possible that the next time we see Shadow, she won't be alone. She spent very little time on Djuma lately. She did one foray through here the other day, and I followed her all the way down Zoe's Road, which was the road that you first met us on. She turned straight towards the clearings at Balanites Road, which leads pretty much onto Arathusa, and that's a very typical territorial mark that she does. She comes all the way down the sort of central west, I guess, if you like, of Djuma, and then heads back out again into Arathusa. These chaps just enjoying their grass and enjoying the fact that they have made it through the night once more. And it's quite an achievement for an impala to have got to this age. I mean, any age beyond your first birthday is impressive, but some of these, especially the one, there was one at the back there with a really wide rack of horns. I mean, he must be sort of 5 or 6 years old. It's pretty good for an impala. Goodbye, fellows. We're going to find something else right now. Now, I thought this might spark a little bit of discussion. Ruth, you're saying if Karula was to abandon the cubs right now, what would their survival chances be? Very good. They're both killed on their own. They certainly, for the female, this is not unusual for a female to go independent at a year old. Remember, they turn a year old this next week. Goodness gracious, there must be celebrations around the world going on right now. Preparations, party hats, cakes being baked, venues being booked, cases of champagne being brought in. Emruth, she would be fine. I think he would be fine too, actually, if he didn't come across a strange male who didn't know who he was. Because that would be his great danger. It wouldn't be... Let me go down this way. It wouldn't be from not being able to hunt or not being able to catch enough to eat. He'd certainly be able to do that. But where would he live? He would probably try and stay in here. If he came across Tingana, he might be okay. But if he got any bigger, Tingana would start to see him as a threat and would definitely try and chase him out. And if Tingana chased him from here, well, if he went off towards Cheetah Plains, towards the east, he'd come up against his two brothers, Shivambalana and Quarantine, both of whom are at least twice his size at this stage. So they wouldn't take too kindly to him, I don't think. And... you know, all of the territories over here are pretty much taken as far as the males go. So he'd have to fight for his territory, but he's definitely nowhere close to being big enough to do that yet. So he's the one who would struggle the most. The sisters would just kind of shift up. You know, the Tundi and Shadow and Karula would make a space between themselves unless she went slightly to the north where there doesn't seem to be a female territory occupied. And she'd be fine there. She wouldn't be fully territorial for a while. She'd just kind of eventually eke out a territory, but the chances of her being killed by another leopard would be small. That said, of course, we do know that Tingana killed and ate Shiluva, female leopard from the northern side of our traversing area, which wasn't a very nice thing for the Duke to do. So maybe Shongila would be in trouble too, but she's his daughter, of course, and so it's very unlikely that he'd try and eat her too. But one just never knows. Oh, hello. Sorry I didn't see you there. You only weigh about 4,500 kilograms. There's a young elephant bull, everybody. He's eating marula fruits for breakfast. One should always eat one's fruit before one has one's bacon and eggs, Craig. Take the lesson from this elephant. I nearly drove straight past him, staring at the road, hoping for some leopard twacks. So peaceful out here today. Especially with all the dervs calling, and now an elephant not more than sort of 8 meters from us, 10 meters, and just completely calm and happy with our presence. You can see the wind catching in the trees here, and I don't know what the weather report says today, but there's quite a lot of fast cloud coming in from the north. Let us ask Kirsten McLennan-Smith in the final control if she might have a look at the weather for us and tell us what it's supposed to be doing. I do seem to spend an inordinate amount of time talking about it. Ooh. Apparently it's going to be sunny all day, but tomorrow morning at 3 a.m. there's a chance of rain. That, of course, is completely ridiculous, because trying to predict that level of accuracy for an area where the storms are so isolated, well... So I think it'll probably be quite a nice hot day. 34 degrees Celsius, that is roughly 93 Fahrenheit. Isn't it amazing? One fruit by one fruit that enormous animal is picking up. Not a great pile. He's using his dexterous little trunk. And now watch him here. He actually tosses the fruit into his mouth. He doesn't place it in. I don't know why I think that's funny. Loop. He just sort of pea shoots it into his mouth, out of his nose. The coordination required there is quite amazing, and I was reading a little bit more about how our nervous systems work, or ours, or the nervous system of just about any creature in the world. The complicated number of signals that have to be transferred down that trunk by the nerves to the muscles to enable it to just do something as simple as it's doing now. It's picking it up, first of all, closing the little prehensile tip of the trunk around the fruits, and then curling it, and then, if you watch carefully, I wish we could do this in slow motion, but we can't. As he brings it up to his mouth, he uncoils the trunk, but as just like a sort of, like when a whip cracks, you know the shape that the whip makes as it cracks. That's what he's doing with his trunk, and that gives and it's very subtle, but that's what's giving the fruit the momentum to get into his mouth. And the number of signals and complicated sort of hormonal and neurotransmittal information and processes that are going on in his brain and being transferred to his spine and then down his trunk are just astounding. And yet he's doing it again and again and again, and will continue to do so the whole day. It really is quite astounding. Now, Lisa, you ask a valid question about how big a marula fruit is and what it tastes like. A marula fruit is about the size of a big one is about the size of a golf ball, and they taste like marula fruits. There's nothing else in the world that tastes like a marula fruit. They're sweet. They've got a kind of slightly scented taste, like you're eating a flower almost, but that's very pleasant. And I mean, the flesh is a bit like a lychee's flesh. You know what a lychee is, but it doesn't come off the pip. The juice is deliciously sweet, full of vitamin C. But really, it's almost impossible to come up with a fruit that you will know that tastes similar to this. I think I don't know of any other fruit that tastes like a marula. I'll try and find you one. I'm just listening to Herbert, who's starting to get mobile. I'm just going to tell Herbert what I'm doing. Right, Byron apparently has managed to find himself a view of the sun coming up. Let's go and find out if it is anything like as impressive as our view of the earlier eastern horizon.
Oh, James, we're just missing everything slightly. The sun has just disappeared behind the cloud. But look at the color, though. It's a beautiful sunrise. And it was peeking through that little gap, and it's just now disappeared directly behind those clouds. I wonder if James is doing it on purpose. Missed the zebra, missed the sunrise. I'm going to wait here just a little bit, because I think we're going to get that sun coming up behind the cloud, perhaps. Let's see. Let's see, we haven't... Just listening to some updates on the radio. We haven't had any luck with line activity just yet, so not exactly sure. Not exactly sure where they are. Oh, wonderful color. It's a very peaceful morning, and as we said, it is quite warm this morning, but the birds are all calling. Lovely sounds. Woodland kingfishers are going mad at the moment. Can actually hear marula fruit dropping behind us. Now I know James was talking about it and the elephant and how they enjoy feeding on the marula fruit. It's interesting, it's almost like a defense mechanism that these marula trees have, is to drop the fruit before they are ripe so that the animals feed on them while they're on the ground and they don't really damage the tree to get to the fruit. I have seen elephants shake a marula tree before to try and get the fruit to drop it. But luckily, there's usually a lot of fruit on the ground. There we go. Sun's peeking through now, above the clouds. Now, Stef has just got, or shall we say active? Stef's come out onto bushwalk, and I think he's also enjoying the sunrise. Let's head across to him and get an update and see what his plans are for the morning.
Good morning, yes, and welcome to the bushwalk. My name is Stef, and isn't that a glorious, absolutely fantastic sunrise that we have this morning? We've been treated lately. We've had a fantastic sunset last night, and we've got the sunrise this morning. And as predicted, it is super bright this morning. So bright, it's actually quite difficult to look at the moment. And that is because we've had quite a lot of wind and quite a lot of precipitation, rain over the last couple of days, and it's washed all the dust out of the atmosphere. And it makes for these fantastic, brilliant, and very bright sunrises. Right, what we are going to do now is we are going to have a look at Connor's drone shot of us walking around on quarantine. So off you go to the drone. There we go. So good morning to you over there. Connor doing his best to fly between these massive trees that are on quarantine, and there you are off to see the sunrise. Of note is the fact that the clouds are racing across the horizon today, coming from the north. Not typically a direction that we get rain from. Who knows what's going to happen today, but definitely a direction we get our largest rains from, our most rain. These clouds sitting low and scudding over the horizon. And then you got Herbert as well, busy walking up to us. If you don't know who he is in charge of keeping a bubble of safety around Jandre and myself this morning. We are off to try and find Karula. That is our mission. She was seen at about 9 o'clock last night. And that is what we're going to be doing. Just have a look at that sun. Isn't it just amazing? Now rising above that band of cloud that's sitting on top of the Lubombo mountain range, that where those band of clouds is, that is the eastern edge of the Kruger National Park. And where we are is the western edge of the Kruger National Park, probably about 80 miles or so from where you are right now. Very nice. Oh, it's just such a lovely day today. So as I said over there, our plan this morning is to head off towards the Sandy Patch, which is the western side of Djuma Private Game Reserve, on the boundary between Djuma and Arathusa. And the reason for that is that at 9 o'clock last night, Karula was seen hunting some Impala in that area. Now, that is probably about the northwestern edge of Karula's territory. She's a female leopard that lives in this particular area, and she's got 2 young cubs around about 11 months old at the moment that she's trying to keep fed. It is probably one of the most difficult tasks for a mother leopard to do at this age, is to keep 2, not just 1, 2 cubs that are sub-adult at the moment fed, and keep them with enough food. She's going to be hunting a lot. So her territory basically extends all the way in that sort of arc this area now, and she was on the western edge of her territory. Wow, the flies are out in force today. And what I'm thinking is that if she didn't kill where she was seen last night at 9 o'clock, she'd be heading off in this direction back towards where we think she stashed her cubs, somewhere here. They'd be waiting patiently for her. As all young leopard do, it's an instinctual thing. After a communication of some sort that the mother gives, the cubs would stay behind in a local area. They don't stay in one place, but they do move locally, hunting small things like birds and squirrels, etc. And they'll be waiting for her to return. These intervals will get gradually longer as the cubs get older, but that bond I don't think is ever really broken. It's not uncommon for mother leopard with successive generations of cubs to be seen with older cubs, of litters previously not abandoned, but previously left to their own devices as adults. So I would imagine that these intervals that Karula spends away from her two babies will get gradually longer as the demand for food on her becomes increasingly more intense. She will spend longer times away or risk actually ruining herself in the process. Now, I don't think that that's the case. Right now, 11 months old is still well within the boundaries where a female leopard is looking after her babies. We're looking only at about 2 years, 2.5 years, so another year and a little bit left of her spending some time looking after these youngsters. I'm looking forward to it myself, seeing where it happens. But anyway, that's the plan for now. We are now going to cross a road, and these roads are important. These roads are basically the newspapers of what has transpired across Djuma last night. And it's a good idea to take your time and have a look at what this particular piece of newspaper is trying to tell you. Why do animals walk around on roads, and in particular why do leopard walk around on roads? It's because the roads were put in here when this area had nothing in it, and generally speaking, roads are on old game trails, old game paths where animals used to go from one area to another, either to water or to food, etc., etc. And in this particular case, these roads are heavily utilized by leopard and lion. It's a very good idea to just sit and have a look and see what has actually gone on last night. All that has walked up and down this road so far has been a porcupine, bristly characters, and a honey badger. So porcupine and a honey badger, some impala, and a wildebeest. That is all that's walked up and down this particular stretch of road. So now what we're going to do is cross this block, and we're going to go and see what else we can find in here. Alright, now while we do that, you're off to James, and I'm sure he's got an update on whatever he's been up to for the last couple of minutes.
I have got an update on what we've been doing, and what I've been doing is trying desperately to find for the second time, just to prove Byron that it's possible more than once, for the bird that's calling there, and it's the Nat.Geo, which is not, as we've discovered yesterday evening when we saw it, not the most inspiringly coloured bird, but they really are calling with great enthusiasm at tip, 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 tip. And yesterday we found it calling right on the top of a tree. I thought maybe we'd be lucky again. I'm not sure that maybe is in fact a word. And have one last look on that very big marula tree over there. I shall scan it with the binoculars. No, I don't see the little brown job with the greyish head. That is the Nat.Geo going toop, 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 toop. Very loud sound for such a tiny little bird, no more than a few inches tall. Okay, now we've had an update on the radio about the Queen. I'm not sure if anyone's told you this, but apparently Joost of Buffelshoek, who's one of the landowners to the north of us, he saw her around Sandy Patch, which is where Byron is. He saw her around there at 9 o'clock last night on the hunt. Now, I'm not surprised by her being seen there, because she does normally do a huge patrol after a big meal, and they've had 2 big impala over the last week or so, and so the fact that she's gone all the way to the far north of her domain and come down towards the south tells me that she's clearly been eating enough, and she's now on a territorial mark to see what's happening. I suspect, and I don't know this for sure, that she wasn't enthusiastically hunting last night, but just making sure that everything was marked. And of course we know that the predators, after a heavy rain, like the one we had the last time we saw her, they have to go and mark their territories again, just in case some intruder comes in and doesn't know that they're around. So that's what's going on there, I think. I doubt that she was on the serious hunt, but that said, if something took her fancy while she was out marking her territory, leaving her popcorn-scented urine on some of the bushes, well, then she would have eaten it. So we will continue our southern boundary patrol at a very slow and sedate pace, just checking to see if some tracks don't come across. Now, Samantha, what a nice question you ask about Karula, given that she's getting on slightly, nearly 13 years old. You say, do female leopards go through menopause? They do not go through menopause. And Samantha, we've had discussions about this a couple of times, and I, for a long time, was under the impression that elephants went through a kind of menopause, that they didn't breed all the way to death. They do stop breeding a few years before they die, but they don't go through a prolonged period of aging. And my logic behind that was that, well, in species where there is a usefulness to old people, for example, when there is knowledge that has to be passed on to younger generations, as there is with human beings, then menopause tends to be much more important. It tends to be that much more useful to the species, and so the females will survive long beyond breeding age. Very few mammal species where that happens, and one of them, of course, is human beings, and apparently a number of whale species exhibit menopause. Elephants, a very, very brief one, and there was one other fascinating creature. There are only 3, as far as I remember, 3 species that go through a prolonged menopause, and I think the other 2 are both, are they aquatic? Can't remember the third one. It's us, it's one of the whale species, and it's one other mammal, as far as I remember. I will look it up again. There's a wonderful article, you might even find it on the National Geographic website. There's a wonderful article there. And Don, as we go through this discussion of menopause, you say, how many litters do I think Karula still has left in her? Well, her mother apparently lived to 18 years, which, if it is true, it is an unconfirmed age, but if it is true, then that would make her the oldest leopard of this area, and in fact probably the oldest recorded wild leopard. And we don't know what's happening in places like the Congo. I mean, leopards there might be living longer than that, but certainly that would be the oldest that we know of. And she would have given birth, I think, probably not too long before her 18th birthday. We've got some very angry squirrels in here. I can see them. I'm just going to go forward first, Craig. So I think Karula could easily have at least 1 more litter in her, possibly 2. And, if we put it at about a 2 to 2.5 year interval from her 13th birthday, 2 years and 2 years is forward, and that'll put her at 17. So I don't think she'll have a youngster when she's 17. So let's say, all things being equal, if everyone survives, I think you'll find that she'll have at least another litter after this. Let me just go back here. The squirrels are still shouting, and I did see which tree they were on. And we'll just turn down this road. Squirrels, of course, have got excellent eyesight, which means that it doesn't necessarily mean what they're shouting at is right underneath where they're sitting. They'll shout at snakes, they'll shout at birds of prey. I think they probably sometimes shout at each other. they will also shout at leopards. Well, they were in this tree here, Craig. There's a barbet. Let's just have a little stop here and see if something doesn't pop out of the woodwork, as it were. You can hear a woodpecker going. Tuck, 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 tuck. There's the barbet, warming himself in the early sun. This funny little bed hair crest. Ooh, now, everybody, I hope that you have got yourselves settled in your seats. Hold on to the armchair, hold on to the sides of your chair, and go across to Stef for one of the most terrifying animals in all of Africa.
So there you are looking at a moving piece of grass. That is its tail, and basically is nothing more than that. We're going to wait just here. There's a snake in the grass here that gave Herbie a big fright as he was leading us through this thick bush. And I still really don't know what snake it is. Green like that, could be any number of snakes really. Being this close to the drainage line, that color green, you probably find it's a green water snake. And that size, at least anyway. Very rare to see a green snake out here. The other option that it could be is, of course, a male boomslang, which is the 9th most venomous snake on the face of the planet. But I did see this little snake's head for the briefest second, and what was immediately apparent from it was this lack of a big eye, which the boomslang has. It makes it a very distinguishable snake. And this particular snake is just solid green and didn't have that massive eye. So one of two snakes, the green water snake or the Natal green snake, one of the two. Very difficult to actually see which one it is. Now, both of those snakes are not very venomous, not to us at least anyway, and hence me sticking my face a little bit closer to this particular bush to see what it is. Boomslang, while very venomous, are not that dangerous for us as people, as long as we don't try and handle them. Of course, snake bites from this particular snake are relatively rare, even though they are so dangerous. Now, we're just waiting for it to come out of here. It's gone into this raisin bush over here, and if we're just a little bit patient, I'm sure we'll be able to see it again. It was hunting the last time I saw it. It's not going to go anywhere else. It's just going to come up into this foliage, hunting for things like lizards and insects. In actual fact, they're not averse to eating a fat, juicy worm. There are snakes most of the times. And that is what we're having a look for now. As you can see, very difficult thing to actually see a green snake in this particular type of foliage. Anyway, let's get down a little bit. The problem with bending down on a day like today is that you go into the realm of these buffalo flies, which are just everywhere today. For some reason, I've walked through a colony of them and they've decided that it's the best thing to come fly around us. I probably have about 60 or 70 flies buzzing around my head even as we speak. Now, I do remember Scott Dyson having an amazing tolerance for flies like this. He could quite easily sit with 20 or 30 of these flies on his head at any given time. As for myself, it is taking every ounce of willpower I have not to beat my head senseless. Alright, let's have one more look for the snake and see if he's going to come out here. Quite often they'll see us and then go into a sort of hiding and just wait for the danger to pass, wait for the movement to pass. It's not that they're scared of anybody, it's just the fact that... Alrighty, let's go over to James quickly. He's got something special to show you. I'll keep on looking here.
Right, we have what Byron was looking for earlier. It was on the road. I didn't see it. Craig said, there's a honey badger. And there was. And it's gone running in here. I don't want to start the engine. I just want to roll down and see if we can't get one quick glimpse. haven't seen one for so long. And Byron was looking for it. It just went across in here. Well, this grass is too long, I think. Apparently Byron is very upset now that we saw the honey badger and he hasn't. It might be heading towards the dam here. Let's just keep looking. Ah, and it sat perfectly on the road for 3 seconds and then it was gone. Both completely surprised by that. No. You got it. Sorry about that, everybody. To drag you away from Stefan, who was no doubt telling you a very interesting story about the snook. Right, we're heading down towards Twin Dams now. Our badger, unfortunately, has gone. It's not to say we couldn't find another badger, you know, that wasn't the only badger in the world. Now, tracks of Karula have been found by Aubrey. They're around Vulture main access road, and so Byron is, I'm not sure where Byron is actually at the moment. I think he had to go back and pump his tyres up. So let's go across to him and he's going to tell you where he is, and please tell him the tracks of Karula have headed east from, I think, somewhere around the junction of Galago shortcut and Vulture main access.
Wow, so I would have been very upset if James found, actually not upset, I would have been jealous if James found that honey badger, but maybe he still does. I wonder if Craig did see a honey badger. That's amazing. the envy is killing me. I've found something very interesting. You can see just in front of me there are 2 very active termite tunnels at the moment. Right in front of me, these or termite chimneys, I suppose you could call them, the start of big termite mounds, but they are very active. There's a lot of activity, and you might be able to see all these little soldier termites, sorry, not the soldiers, the workers, building and basically molding this chimney. And what they're doing is they're circulating air, or allowing air to circulate through the mound, and this is incredibly deep. I'm just having a look now, and it looks, it's, from what I can see, it looks like it's about this deep, this little chimney that's going on here underground, so that's quite deep already. But it's very large. That hole is about this big. This chimney is around that size, so that's very big. But I think what they're doing is they're, again, just trying to circulate air through the termite colony or termite mound, and it's the start of a beautiful mound, it looks like. It's interesting though. While I've been sitting here, I've been seeing some robber flies coming in and picking up termites and flying off with them. They literally sit, they wait for 1 or 2 to walk, and they grab them and fly off. Now, I don't know where the soldier termites are, those slightly larger termites with those big pincers. They're the ones who usually protect a termite colony when it is open like this, especially. I don't see any soldiers. These are just the workers constantly building and basically smoothing out the inside of this tunnel. Now, it's amazing to see how it's very coarse on the outside, but completely smooth on the inside. It fascinates me. Just termites in general are fascinating. How they build these mounds and chimneys, really, really mind-blowing. And then also just what a good food source the termites are for so many different animals, not just aardvark and pangolin, but flies, robber flies and birds that come through and pick out termites, other insects. There's so many animals that benefit from termites. They play such a vital role in the ecosystem. it really, really is special to see termites and when they are active like this. Now, before I get bitten to pieces by the little biting flies that are around here, I must be honest. I think I'm very lucky I'm not a wildebeest or a zebra, because these biting flies usually looks like they enjoy them quite a lot, and they are quite irritating around the legs. Now I'm heading back towards that sandy patch area. James, I know, told you there was an update on Karula. And we'll just see. I didn't have a sign of her this morning when I was around there, but we'll have a look again. Ariel, you wanted to know, with a termite mound, would we make a path around them if they get bigger? Definitely. If we knew that we were going to perhaps damage the mound, we would definitely drive around them. Obviously, the termite mounds are very important, so we don't want to damage them. So we would most likely just move around them if they get a bit taller. But for the moment, we could just fit over there, so that we didn't damage the mound at all. I'm just having a look. While I'm driving now, I'm just going to have a good look for any tracks. I can see the tracks I've just seen are hyena tracks. Not that clear, but from last night, hyena moving along the boundary. This is our northern boundary actually, but with Buffelshoek to my right. I can see another vehicle approaching. I wonder if they've had any luck. It doesn't look like it. Now, Stef had some luck with the snake earlier. Boomslang has now got an insect he'd like to show you.
We didn't have any luck with that snake. It seemed to have escaped us. But what we do have luck with is one of the largest bee flies that we find in this area. And it before the sun starts warming it up and it starts getting impossible to even see in their flight, it's giving us a chance to have a look at one. This pied bee fly. I don't know if it is a pied bee fly. That's just me making up a name just because it's black and white. But definitely is one of the largest. Now that is probably about as large as your thumbnail. In total, you can see the grass blades around it. It is just busy relaxing on the grass blade there. It's where it spent the night. They're daytime animals. And now, last night on the sunset show, I had a look at the hairy bee fly. It's slightly smaller by about half. Has these silvery golden hairs all over it. This one is no less striking in that it's also covered in a fuzz of hair. Only instead of being golden, this one is black and white, with that long proboscis that it uses to stick into flowers to eat nectar. And one of the things we were discussing around this particular genus of, or at least this particular insect group, the bee flies, is that their larvae, their maggots if you will, eat and control locusts. And so they're quite important from an ecological point of view in keeping the balance out here. Now it's quite difficult to think about balance. When we're talking about ecological balance, the natural thing that we want to try and do is to try and think that there's an equilibrium. In other words, a set thing. It must be so, can't be too much, can't be that much. I'm under the impression that taken over time it'll be a straight line. But if you look at anything in any given time frame, any year or any season or any day for that matter of fact, there's always a curve to it. So there's always sort of this nice curve going where one thing will lead to another and one thing will be out of sync with another. In this particular case, these bee flies lay their eggs and their larvae on top of locusts. The locusts then get infested with the maggots of these particular bee flies, which kills the locust, and then more bee flies come out. But at a point, what will happen is the amount of locusts around will decrease, and therefore the amount of hosts to feed the bee flies' larvae, and so the bee flies' numbers will start to decrease, and that in turn will affect the locust numbers, and they'll be able to increase again. And so you have this predator following prey relationship or curve that is prevalent at any given time. I see it's now flown off, so I've managed to successfully scare it away. All right. That's just going to happen at any particular point. Wow, the flies are bad today. What we need is some more of those spiders around. We found, and for those who couldn't watch the sunset drive yesterday, we found one of the very first of the golden orb web spiders that we've seen on Djuma probably now for 2 seasons. Last year I saw 2 toward the end of December. This year I've only seen 1, and I've heard of another one. And you know, you just can't understand. 1 spider we're calling in now, whereas in some years there are 100 spiders per hectare here, more even. Right, now something's catching my eye as I'm... it's a little grass locust, not locust, excuse me, praying mantis here. Just come out, here we go, at the point of my finger. That stick like insect is a praying mantis. Oof. Very well hidden, even though there is not a stick of cover. I must be honest with you, I'd prefer to have 100 of those praying mantises around my head at the moment, catching all these flies. Wow, it is bad today. Alright, Mr. Genre, I see there's a pan here. Why don't we have a look at what's been drinking at it last night? This is one of these typical sort of bushveld or savanna pans, as we like to call it. They start quite simply as an elephant basically pushing a tree down, and what will happen then is the roots of that tree get pulled out of the ground. At the base of trees' roots, especially old trees, you find a lot of clay. So you get this hollow that's got a lot of clay in it. It then rains, this hollow then fills up with water, and because of the clay, it doesn't seep into the ground immediately. This is inviting on a hot day to come and lie in, and so the local animals, warthog in particular, buffalo, elephant, rhinoceros, and hippo to an extent, will come and lie in those puddles, washing off the clay that's on their bodies that they've brought from other water bodies, and that'll then cement the pan. As the years go by, and as these animals come and go from this particular pan, the edges wear away and get weathered away by just the passage of feet, and then the pan increases in size and depth, in actual fact, to something like this that holds water for sometimes weeks after every rainstorm, and become focal points in the dry season for animal movements, and will become nodes, in actual fact, for animal movements. And this is what's happened here. I can only imagine there was at a point either a big knobthorn tree like this one right here, or a marula tree that the elephants pushed over, and that in turn now has created this pan. Now let's see what has been coming here down to drink. Nothing. Some impala. No big animal has come down here, literally probably since the last heavy rains we had a couple of nights ago. That's incredible, which is good. It means that there's lots of other water everywhere. Alright, we're going to carry on with our search for Karula and send you over to James.
Now, here we have come to a spot in the land where there is a bird of death sitting in the tree, and unfortunately that bird seems to be on its own, so I don't think it's looking down at any kind of death on the ground. It is, of course, a white-backed vulture. And I have to agree with Stef. I've been slashing at my legs today. There are flies about with great abundance, and they are biting. It's very unpleasant. Why there should be so many, I don't know. Perhaps because we had a hot day yesterday after the rain. They have all come out. But there are many of them. There's a wonderful shot here. If we can just go a little wider, sorry, thanks Craig, of some very fast moving cloud coming past this ominous bird. That would be a wonderful time lapse. It might also be quite a nice, drone shot And it just so happens, everybody, of course, that we actually have a drone pilot. And it also just so happens that the drone pilot is not far from us. And so I think we might try and get this bird in its tree with the clouds going by from the drone. Unfortunately, the drone commander still has to launch his drone, which is not too far behind us. And I'm just going to... Ooh. There we go, the vulture's gone. I think Connor must have got out of his car behind us some distance away, and that vulture took one look at his biceps and thought, I think I'm going to move on. Alrighty, I think we'll carry on gently. I'm just going to turn round. It was very nice to see that white-backed vulture. My earpiece is falling out of my ear. And if it does fall out of my ear, of course, I shan't be able to hear Kirsten, who will then become very cross. Benjamin, you're wondering about the status of the white-backed vulture and saying that you've heard that it is critically endangered, and is that true? Benjamin, I don't think it's critically endangered, no. Are all vultures in some danger of perhaps not making it? Yes, they are. I don't think it's critically endangered. It's certainly not nearly as endangered as the Cape vulture. In fact, the white-backed is probably the least concerned, but all vultures are of concern to us, Benjamin, because they are... In fact, I'm not going to go along. Yeah, I think I will go along this road very slowly. All of vultures are desperately in danger simply because they have an issue. We're not entirely sure what it is. Let's just get a vulture's eye view of what we're looking at here, and I'll carry on with my story. There are a number of what we call vultures' restaurants around the place, next to the mountains, where people sort of put out carcasses on an almost daily basis, and that attracts a lot of the vultures from this area and draws them out of the natural areas. That's one thing. There is a tremendous amount of trapping and poisoning of vultures at carcasses because they are used for traditional medicine, and there are many, many very, very poor people around the place out here. Oh dear, look what's happened here. There are very many poor people around the place, and that inspires them to try and get hold of things like vultures to be sold for traditional medicine. Now, as you watch me from the drone, Craig, you'll tell me if we cut back from the drone shot. On the ground here is a dead monitor lizard. Connor, come and have a look here. Now, I'm just going to be very careful about checking around, because we do know that leopards do kill these things, but they're also killed by martial eagles quite a lot. So I'm going to attempt to unravel the mysteries of this crime scene here. This monitor lizard is not a very big one. It's probably about 2 feet long, and I can only see its claw marks here. I can't see the claw marks of a bird, or certainly not a bird big enough to have done this. We need to just check in the sky. I mean, there certainly wasn't a martial eagle around here when we arrived. This is major death went on here. There's blood all over the road. But I cannot see what would have done this. That is fascinating. The termites, and in fact a dung beetle, has come in and taken the blood and perhaps buried it for eating. I don't know. There was a tremendous fight here. There are lots of tracks of nocturnal birds. I think there's a bronze-winged courser track. There are dove tracks here. There's the odd Franklin track. But none of them would have done this to a fearsome monitor lizard. I'm just wondering if I shouldn't bring it back to the tent, perhaps. But I think by then, by the time we go into the tent again, it'll start to stink. This is not that new, you know. It's already starting to be attacked by carrion beetles. I'm just going to move it because I want to see if perhaps we can't see. Oh dear. I do hope fervently that that is nerve reaction and not it being still alive and suffering. I wanted to see if maybe there weren't some talon marks on the back of the throat, or the back of the head. No, I think this thing is unfortunately... Yeah, it's had its neck broken. It's definitely had its neck broken. I cannot tell what did this. Well, fascinating stuff. Could have been something like a badger, or it could have been perhaps something like a serval that came along during the night. They had a fight and whatever it was decided that it wasn't worth it, injured it sufficiently to kill it, and there it's been left. Isn't that sad? And I think that movement was nerve movement, but I'm not sure. It might still be just about to die. Yeah, I mean, we're nowhere near where that honey badger was, everyone, so I don't think it was the honey badger that we saw, but a honey badger would definitely take on a monitor lizard like this. Fascinating. Alrighty, let's continue up the road. And yes, that was my first thought, a Hosanna victim. Now, Hosanna killed one of these things the other day, but it was much bigger. It was a big water monitor. And he didn't eat it. And this is not far from where we last saw him, you know. He could easily have bitten this thing and lost interest and left it here somewhere. It's what an interesting thought. I think the reptiles tend to have that kind of nerve reaction for a lot longer than many of the other animals out here, or many of the other mammals or birds. And so I don't actually think it was alive. There was no movement from the eyes. But definitely it had had its neck broken, snapped. I don't think it was alive. You know, many of you saying you feel sad that it was still alive. I don't know that it was alive. I think it could easily have, you know what? I think that was either nerve reaction, or I've just had this thought, it's been bitten by something like a snake. And I wonder if whatever has, because that would it would clearly show why I hadn't seen any footprints, and there's, you know, very difficult to tell the difference between a snake track and the thrashing of that thing's tail. And I wonder if, as we came along the road, whatever snake had whacked it, could have been a mamba, it could easily have been something like a big cobra, maybe bitten it, and maybe it's going through the final stages of its kind of neurotoxic, I nearly said catharsis, neurotoxic death. And maybe that's why it's all curled over to one side. Maybe its brain is shutting down on one side. I'm going to go with that, actually. I think it could easily have been a snake that's bitten that thing, a neurotoxic venom. Right, Stef has got something much less terrifying than any of that crime scene had to offer.
You know, it's sometimes sad to see these things in states like you've just seen, you know. It generates all these conversations around, should you help, when do you help, who do you help, for what reason do you help. But what you're looking at over here is a fly. So that looks like a wasp. It probably even looks like a bee to some of you. It is in fact a fly. And the way that I know that it's a fly is because of the vestigial wings that I'm going to show you on this fly. And if I can get a little bit closer to it. Only flies have these little nodes, and they sort of the remnants from when flies had 4 wings and now only have 2. Now I'm going to come in with you a little bit and we'll see if I can point them out to you. So you're going to go onto the fly there, and what I want you to do is have a look at the base of the wings here at that little yellow dot there. That little yellow dot is present in some form or another on every fly species that we find. And that's what makes this a fly and not a bee or a wasp. That's a fly. Now what this fly does is it uses its incredibly strong legs, and you can see it's almost got swollen legs over there with the muscles of those 3 legs that you can see on this particular side. And that is because it's very muscular. It'll use those muscular legs to wrestle insects off of plants, and it'll wrestle those insects off of plants so that it can bite them, or actually pierce their heads or pierce their thoraxes. They've got a very sharp mouth part, and they will pierce the thorax of their prey while they're holding it down, stick their face in it and kill them, and then suck all the juices out of that prey species. And these flies are instrumental in keeping plants free of pests that feed not only on their flowering parts, which allow obviously the plants to make seed and to propagate themselves, but also in their leaves, which allows plants to then generate food for other animals in the form of just more leaves or healthier leaf cover, but also helps to allow that plant to store up energy in its bark and in its root systems, which then in turn carry energy over into a dry season. So, all these little checks and balances are vitally important out here. And it brings us neatly back to, that poor monitor lizard that you were having a look at over there. Who knows what it's suffering from? As James predicted, that it could have been a snake. Monitor lizards are well known for hunting snakes, and quite often they do get bitten in the process. And maybe it'll get better and maybe it won't. We'll have to hold thumbs for the guy. But anyway, before it runs away, why don't you go and have a look at the Steenbok that Byron's got.
I've got a beautiful little male Steenbok. Now, I must be honest, I feel like I'm not adding much value this morning. I've been looking around and it's been very quiet for us on drive, for Dave and I. And I don't know why. But we haven't found too much. No sign of any animals. Seen some hyena tracks from last night. That's about it. That's actually a beautiful male Steenbok, and full grown. Those horns are definitely fully grown. He would be considered as a large male Steenbok. Dominant, probably has a little territory around here, and I'm sure there's a female not far off. I can hear the red-crested coron. I'm sure you heard that. Let's see if we can find him. Maybe we're lucky and we get a display out of him. Shall we go and have a look while we'll leave this Steenbok to hide in the long grass some more? It's amazing how well camouflaged they are and how well hidden they are in that long grass at the moment. I heard that red-crested coron calling not far, just over here somewhere. Let's see if it comes out or if we get a display. Going to try my tapping trick. And let's see. Again, I don't know if it works or not. Where is it now? This red-crested coron would be very difficult to spot in the long grass. I'm not crazy. It definitely has worked before, tapping on the side of the vehicle. Just that, I think it's because of that clicking sound that the red crested Quran do in the beginning of that call, that before they start whistling, and then I have seen them react to it and shoot up into the air and parachute down. Let's try once more. No, nothing. Maybe the animals are upset with me that I'm leaving. Maybe that's why they're just hiding from us this morning. Wishful thinking, I suppose. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to head towards Twin Dams, where James may or may not have seen a honey badger. I'm just going to go have a look there. You never know. If you don't try, you don't stand a chance of seeing anything. So I'm going to try and see if I can find that honey badger that may or may not have been running around there. Maybe we're lucky and it's still active. David, tip of the day. I know some of you are wondering now what the tip of the day is for today. Ooh, what's today's tip of the day? I think I think, what can it be? Tip of the day, I would say for today, and seeing as I'm leaving after this drive, I think what I can suggest, and as a tip of the day, is try your best to save up and come on a safari in Africa. I know occasionally it might be a little bit expensive and it's not always easy, but I think like anything, if you put your mind to it, save up, come out on safari and experience it for yourself, because it is a wonderful experience. It can be a life-changing experience for some people, and it's a special place. It's a special place, and I think everybody needs to try and experience it, and especially all of our viewers. I know you love the wildlife, you love seeing it on camera and watching from home, but at some point in your lives, try and get out here and try and experience it. Doesn't matter where you go. Just try your. I would say that's a tip of the day. And do research and see different places to go, and because every game reserve is slightly different depending on the experience you're looking for. And I recommend, and as I said, I recommend places for guests to go to constantly, and depending on their budget and what they're looking for. I generally don't like sending people to places where I know they're not going to get a authentic wildlife experience. I think that's the most important thing for me, is that they go to a place where hopefully they've got qualified guides that understand the bush, that take guests out and will give them a good experience, and that it's not zoo-like, that there are no fences where the animals are separated or anything like that. You want to have an authentic experience.